Greetings, greetings. Welcome back to another fantastic episode of the Death, Taxes, and Sports podcast. My name is Jeff Long. I'm here with my esteemed colleague, Gary Johnson. It is just us two today. Marissa Tigney is enjoying her birthday. She is enjoying out there in the birthday streets, and Mr. Ben Holloway has some professional obligations that we wish him well on. But Mr. Gary Johnson, how are you doing today, sir?
Doing wonderful. Marisa, happy birthday. Ben, good luck with everything that you're doing. I do have a quick gripe, and I think I'm going to do my gripe right now. It's real simple.
Go for it.
I don't like that our intro ends on a Dallas Cowboy helmet. I just want to say that.
Well,
I've watched this intro many times. Don't get me wrong, but this is the first time I'm like, something seems off, and that's what it is.
yeah. No, I totally get it. And because it's you and I, we should definitely get into some Cowboys talk because being that we have pretty much a whole hour to talk about whatever the hell that we want. So this is going to be rather interesting. But first, being that you are a Giants fan, and that just kind of brings it, Saquon Barkley, your boy, is no longer being franchise tagged. Thank goodness. What are your thoughts, and what do you think is an ideal landing spot for Mr. Barkley?
First of all, as a Giants fan, it's a weird day. Like we all knew that this was likely, but even when it comes, it's still just like, yeah, y'all really decided that he's not worth more than like 10 mil. Fair enough.
Yeah.
You know who's going to think he's worth more than 10 mil? The Houston Texans are going to think he's worth more than 10 mil. I'll say that right now. Give
I mean,
give CJ Stroud that weapon to go along with his wide receiving core, which I say, and I'll put it up there. It's their wide receiving core is probably top five in the AFC. Now I'm not saying the whole league, but at least in the conference, they have a top five wide receiving core when fully healthy. And you add that to the mix, and you add another year of seasoning for CJ Stroud, and hopefully he progresses and not regresses. Like they've already took that first step. The future is wide open for them. So I think
yeah,
Saquon, if he wants to look at a location, Houston's as good of a spot, really.
yeah.
And I'll
No
say
state income tax.
no state income tax, yes. And I'll say just as a quick backup to that, I'll throw the Chargers out there since I'm sure they're going to move on from Austin Eckler. I think you give Harbaugh that, you give Justin Herbert that. Maybe that their fortunes turn around, or maybe they just, add to their curse.
Yeah. That's the last thing we need. We don't need him to come to our division. We already have to worry about Harbaugh and everyone else. We could potentially be. I think we're going to be the worst team, or if not one of the worst teams between us and the Raiders as far as in the AFC West. But I digress in that one. Their receiving core is great, but I'm not sure if it's necessarily elite. Right? I still think they can add maybe another receiver that can take the top off the field, right? If you add maybe, even if it's just like a rookie with just a little bit of just straight lateral speed, right? You can always get better. You can always add more people. But
my guy that just set the record in the 40-yard dash at the combine. Now he's built himself up a little bit more. Like his stock's risen considerably. You talk about somebody that can take it over the top. There you go.
Yeah. When you're talking about a guy like that, we're going to see. But Saquon Barkley going to Houston, I think is a great pick. I'm not sure from a salary cap perspective if to the Chargers is going to be the best idea. I thought about that at first. I said that on a space. Some people like that, but they have to really kind of worry about that cap situation. But I really like that with the Texans because you can just imagine Singletary didn't get it done. And the other guy that they had, whose name I can't even remember, also didn't get it done. But you just give him a decent passing game, man, the sky's the limit. And they would definitely have to be afraid of the AFC, don't you think?
Without question, they certainly would be the prohibitive favorite to win the division. I think they can be a team that will win more than one playoff game if
Yeah.
you get a
Yeah,
Saquon
Damian
Barkley.
Pierce. Damian Pierce,
Yeah.
there we go. Damian Pierce, that's who it
And I
was.
think
Okay, yeah.
and honestly, if David Pierce had stayed healthy all season, then perhaps it would have played more into it. But
Yeah.
he didn't. It is what it is.
Facts. And we again want to thank everyone for being able to join us today. I love seeing the little eye thing at the top. Just keep on sparkle with more people. So definitely stay tuned, guys. So let's kind of get to this Russell Wilson trade talk, my friend, because I want to talk about that, and I also want to talk about some of the worst trades in sporting history, but maybe in NFL history. And the obvious one is the Herschel Walker, but we gotta bring some other trades into this one. But for me, this Russell Wilson trade, I actually think that it was needed for them to do this, or for them, or not trade. They needed to cut Russell Wilson, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I get the $85 cap hit, but the minute you decided to bench him for the final two games instead of Jarrett Stidham, that's when it was over. It's one of those decisions that you can't go back from. And I get the dead cap hit, but we paid this guy to win Super Bowls and for us to win more than just 8 games. The guy's 11-19 as a starter. Now, obviously, there's going to be questions of who blames who, but him coming in asking for a parking spot, personal trainer, the office, Tom Brady and Peyton Manning could have done that, but they won. But he didn't back it up. But your thoughts?
No, it's unfortunate how this is all played out for them out in Denver, but I think for Russell Wilson, it's the best thing that could happen to him. He wasn't going to go back. He wasn't going to wow the Broncos into considering like keeping him longer. He wasn't going to do any of that. They're ready to move on. They're ready to draft their quarterback of the future and roll the dice yet again. All power to them. As far as Russell Wilson goes, he's in a weird spot because some people are going to look at his age, even though as a fellow 35-year-old, I'm a little offended by it. Some people are going to look at his age. Some people are going to say his abilities have diminished, but it's like, have they, or was he
Yeah.
not in the best system? That and yes, his demands were obnoxious and very diva-ish, but I mean, point out a star quarterback that wasn't a diva. Besides Eli
I mean,
Manning, and that doesn't count either. So
he said 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. The dude didn't necessarily have like his season
he wasn't
wasn't.
he wasn't 15
His,
and
se-
5 like our quarterback.
yeah, like his season wasn't terrible. And I hate to say it, but I do think Sean Payton is still a little bit overrated. Like,
Sean Payton is the Doc Rivers of football.
right? Like he's just like we have to look at the numbers, and if you look at his numbers, playoffs, regular season, they're very identical to a coach down, Mike McCarthy down in Dallas. So for me, it's like they're still writing off of what they did with Drew Brees and what they did in that Super Bowl back in
Mm-hmm.
2010. And it's like that's a good point, Gary, of Doc Rivers. And it's just absolutely ridiculous how we are hyping this guy up. And I'm just not sure if he's necessarily the answer as a head coach. I'm not calling for him to be fired or anything. He's an upgrade over Nathaniel Hackett, who couldn't hack it. But I don't know, man. There's definitely some questions about him as well.
No, there's questions everywhere, but I think if we're talking about like where would Russell Wilson go next, I mean, kind of the door is open because either he's going to either land someplace where they can trust him as a starter, or he's going to be a solid backup. But the question is, where would he fit as a solid backup? I have a couple of places in mind. One's a little crazy, and I'm sure you wouldn't want to hear it, but I will say my other place first. And yes, that would be my New York Football Giants. Please, we don't know what we're going to get out of Daniel Jones. We don't know if he's going to be healthy enough to start the season. We don't know what he's going to be like once the season starts, and now you're going to take away his top weapon in Saquon Barkley. So you need somebody. You need somebody in there. It's worth the shot, and plus, I'm sure Sierra would love to be in the Northeast. The
I
other
mean,
place we're going.
go. Let's just go ahead and let me hear your second thought, and let's kind of speak a little bit on Daniel Jones because I want to ask you a question. But go ahead.
The second place, I'm sure you would not like,
The
but
Raiders.
no.
Okay.
Imagine him being a backup to Patrick Mahomes.
Oh God.
I don't believe it's.
Uh,
I don't think it's feasible. I don't think it'll happen. But if all the chairs are filled by the time the season starts, we find ourselves in a situation where he needs a job. I mean, There are worse places to be a backup.
You know, I wouldn't rule that out because when you look at the landscape of nothing is going to happen until his situation is not going to be solidified until until the end of the season or at the end of the NFL draft. I think because you look at guys like Bo Nix, you look at I mean, there's a lot of quarterbacks, man, that played a lot of football, right? Outside of
Yeah.
the Drake Mays, outside of the JG McCarthy's, right? You still got guys like Bo Nix, you got Penix, but you go deeper into the draft, right? You're talking a guy
Mm-hmm.
like Spencer Rattler, right? Who
Right.
3 year starter, right? Played a lot of big time football. He's going to be maybe a third or fourth round pick. And then you also have, I'm trying to think of who's another quarterback, but off the top of my head that I can think of, in the second, third, and fourth rounds, there's going to be a lot of quarterbacks that could potentially be drafted that are young and going to play a lot of football. So if you're a GM, do you really want to bring in a guy like Russell Wilson? Maybe KC, where the starter is already cemented in Patrick
It's
Mahomes.
very, very. That's what I'm saying. It has to be some place where it's very, very clear who the starter is, and you're
Yeah,
not going to upend them.
yeah. So, but back to this whole Daniel Jones thing. What is this constant commitment to Daniel Jones after you've already had enough of a sample size with him? Because it just isn't going to work. He just doesn't provide upside. And didn't they just restate their commitment to Daniel Jones? I'm just trying to understand it. But please help me from a Giants fan's perspective. What they could even possibly see to warrant committing to him based on what they've seen over the last what 4 or 5 years.
Ready? I wish I could give you a clear cut answer on that, but I can't. I don't know what they're seeing, what they're seeing in him. Your best season with Daniel Jones, which led to yes a playoff run and a playoff win against a division winner, you rewarded him for 15 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. You gave him $140 million for 15 or $160 million, whatever the number is, for 15 and 5. Forgetting the fact that he can't stay healthy, forgetting the fact that this team has far greater needs beyond the quarterback position. Like, I don't know, an offensive line to protect the quarterback so that he doesn't get killed the way that Daniel Jones got killed last season. Like, there are far worse things to deal with. There are far more pressing matters. And yes, your quarterback is important, absolutely, but let's face it, you got better quarterback play out of Tommy Cutlets and Tyrod Taylor last season.
Right.
Like that's not
Tyrod Taylor.
hyperbole. That's not hyperbole. Like that's a real thing. You got better play from your backup and your backup's backup than your starter. What more do you need to see to keep him? It's time
I
to move
mean,
on.
not just that, dude, but then also just the confidence level in the coaching staff. I mean, these guys in the locker room, they see what he can do in practice. They all talk when they're hanging out at their buddy's house playing NFL Madden. They're probably trash talking Daniel Jones. There's nothing, in my opinion, that warrants him continuously being the starter. Like, okay, bring him back. You gave him the contract extension. They're in the second year of it, I believe, or if not the first year. Have him
Yeah,
compete. Bring in
they're in
another
the
veteran.
they're in the second year and they can get out of the contract after this year.
I mean, it just doesn't. It's crazy how sometimes in football how they talk about like making certain decisions, but some of the decisions are just very clear that the numbers and the math ain't mathing, and it doesn't make sense for Daniel Jones. I just don't. I really don't understand that. But since we're kind of on this whole football thing, and this whole Justin Fields situation is kind of interesting, and I kind of have a little bit of a philosophy, and I think that the Bears are overplaying their hand with Justin Fields a little bit as far as the type of haul they're expecting to get. When they're in, here's the thing: in 37 games, okay, this man has thrown for over 225 yards only 6 times in those 37 games. I found that stat out. Now, you can blame it for his inability to be a pocket passer, or you could look at the horrendous offensive line. You could look at the lack of playmakers. But I think Justin Fields is a super talented guy, but as far as like a pure passing quarterback, I'm not sure. And I think the Bears are overplaying their hand a little bit, in my opinion, as far as what they're going to get. They're not going to get a first rounder. They might get 2/3, if that. Your thoughts?
He is a slightly more athletic Teddy Bridgewater.
Okay.
I think that's the best comparison that I can come up with for him. Like he's a more athletic Teddy Bridgewater. I think he was never set up for success in Chicago. Like point out to me any part of what they've done since drafting him that leads you to go, oh yeah, nah, they're setting him up to be the successful quarterback of our next decade plus. Which, if you look at their history, like who are the true franchise quarterbacks of the Chicago Bears that you can name? Um, Jim McMahon. Um,
I mean, their best season was with Brian, no, with what you call it, Rex Grossman back in 2006 when they went to
there
the
you
Super
go.
Bowl. They
Thank you.
started 10-2. That was their best year with Rex Grossman, and Rex Grossman wasn't the reason. It was Lance Briggs and that defense. It wasn't him.
So, when I look at the Bears, I don't think you don't think star quarterback. You don't think a legendary figure. You don't think an iconic quarterback. That's not what they're about. And they've pretty much proven that by really kind of giving him the short end of the stick as far as having a team around him that could be conducive to long-term success.
Yeah.
Now on the flip side of that, Bears management, like they're trying it, but it's like, again, he doesn't have the body of work to warrant the draft picks that you want to get for him because you did not put him in the position to be that person. Like if you want somebody to attract draft picks, draft capital, players, whatever, you got to build them up some. Because right now you're trying to trade them off name alone and potential. And GMs are not stupid. Most of them aren't. They're going to look at
I
that
mean,
and go, there's 32, right? There's 32 general managers in football, in professional football in the NFL on the planet. There's 32 of them. They know what they're doing for the most part. So they're going to look at that and go, what has he done? What has he done to warrant the haul of draft picks that you're looking for? Because it's not going to. They should have cut him. They should have let him go because they're not going to get back what they think they're going to get back. Nobody's that.
I mean, you got to
stupid.
get something. I mean, you got to get something. But when you're also a general manager and you're looking at a team that's trying to be able to get him, if you're Atlanta and you're thinking to yourself, okay, I have all these rookie. It What would make me pause about getting Fields is that he's going to his fifth year, and you have to decide whether you're going to give him a contract extension. But I guarantee you that any GM that trades for him are not going to be sold enough to where, okay, let's give him a contract extension right away. It's going to be a prove it deal, right? And that's why the type of trade package is going to be so important and why teams aren't necessarily jumping ahead because they could just, you know what, hey, restart the clock, build through the draft, get a rookie quarterback we have for and then the fifth-year deal, depending on where they're at. If they're in the first round, is usually like between like a $12 to $16 million salary cap hit if you pick up the fifth-year option. But usually teams that compete are on rookie deals, right? Why the Bengals made it to the Super Bowl. But do you feel good about potentially paying him 30 to 40 million? I'm not sure if I would jump at that, and I think that's why there's a little bit pause because you got to pay him that contract.
Because what has he done?
Nothing. He's done nothing to warrant the contract.
Like the Giants did with Daniel Jones, you are paying for potential. That's dangerous. Like that's incredibly dangerous to pay that kind of money. That's why there's rookie deals. Rookie deals are for potential because then if it works out, then you give them the money. If it doesn't work out, hey, thanks for being here. So long. Find another team.
Yeah.
We're not seeing like that. That's incredible. That's incredibly short-sighted. So.
Right, but if I'm Atlanta, if I'm looking at my defense that I spent all this money on, which is a pretty good defense, I look at all the skill players that I have, and if all I have to do is maybe give up two, like 2025 second day draft picks and when I could potentially recoup those assets sometime during the year, if I'm the Falcons, I say, you know what? If I have to give up a third and a fourth in 2025 to take this risk, you see with Fields, knowing the running game that I have with Algier and Bijan, Kyle Pitts, who's only 23 years old. I'm looking at Drake London on the outside, which I still think they need another receiver outside of Drake London because I'm not
They
sure if he's
do.
the number one guy, right?
No, yeah,
But you look
absolutely.
at that, they can afford to maybe take that risk, and they're still going to have the leverage to maybe give him a salary cap friendly contract to where maybe it's like a 3 year, 75 million, but he's never going to be a 45 to $50 million guy, right? Like
No,
that's just not
no,
him.
no. And really, if for Atlanta, I'm reading that there's a little traction with Kirk Cousins potentially going there instead. And I'm like, if that's the case, then I sat back and I'm like, I don't like that for Atlanta necessarily, but that opens the door for Justin Fields to end up in Minnesota instead.
Or maybe even Pittsburgh, man. I think that there's going to be, in your opinion, what is one wild card team do you think that we're not thinking about that can potentially sneak in and get Fields? Not the obvious choices like Pittsburgh or because I have a dark horse.
The only two teams that I've really thought about as like they're not on the radar, but don't be surprised. One is Washington,
Hmm.
and the other one, and this is just in all respect to Baker Mayfield, but you tell me if that's long term success in Tampa Bay personified, or I don't know, a young quarterback in Tampa, like in a warm weather climate like Tampa Bay. I think Justin Fields would be happier there than Chicago. So
Yeah, but I think Tampa Bay is like infatuated with Baker Mayfield, which I get it. They made it to the divisional round and he competed, but Baker Mayfield is a high end backup,
they
low end starter, in my opinion.
they won one more game than they did with Tom Brady the season before. Go
Yeah,
somewhere
you
with
know what I
that. I'm
mean?
good.
Like Baker Mayfield, like I like Baker Mayfield. I like his moxie, but as far as like we've seen that act too many times. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's good enough to get you just into the playoffs, but if you're looking at taking it to another level, I'm like they're going to pay Baker Mayfield probably 35 to 40 million this year, even if it's just a 2 year deal. His annual average value is probably going to be in the top 10 among quarterbacks, ahead of Geno Smith, which is ridiculous. I think Geno Smith is better than Baker Mayfield. I'll say that.
Yeah, but I'm thinking
I
that's the reason why
mean,
I thought about Tampa. But the reason why I thought about Tampa Bay because I'm like him. They just re-signed Mike Evans. You get Chris Godwin. Like
yeah,
that looks good. At least on paper, that looks good. That
yeah,
sounds
on
promising.
paper, on paper, on paper, but we'll see. But man, we talked some good football for 23 minutes. Let's get to a little bit of baseball here, my friend. We can go into a lot of different, we could parse this up in so many different ways, but want to talk about like the start of the MLB season. But first, talk about some reasonable expectations for the Dodgers. I just have a feeling the Dodgers are going to dodge, and they're going to dodge their way to a first round exit. Okay. It's not due to their It's not due to the talent. It is when their talent doesn't show up. I remember being in Phoenix, watching them play against a very underwhelming Diamondbacks team, and Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman were combined, I think, 2 of 24 in that series. Okay, now you add Ohtani, okay, which is great, but to me, they'll probably win 105, 110 games, and I just don't trust them like in the long run. And our friend Gary here is going to come back. So it looks like it's just going to be me. Like when it comes to the Dodgers, I look at this team and I look at just the overall amount of talent that they have, whether if it's Yamamoto, whether if it's going to be Atani, whether it's going to be Freddie Freeman, whether if it's going to be Mookie Betts. You look at all the amount of money, and welcome back, Gary. I was just saying when you look at all the money that they have spent, they have $1.2 billion in two players alone. That's not including Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman. So they almost have about 2.5 to 3 billion in 5 or 6 players in guaranteed money over the next 14 years. Are we feeling the Dodgers hype when they haven't won a World Series in a full 116 162 regular seasons since 1988? Well, he's going to be back. And my answer is going to be no. You look at the fact that this team had about what I think 111 wins in 2022. Then in 2023 they had about 105 wins, and then they still found a way to be able to crap the bed. I'm just not necessarily sure if this is going to be a team that is going to be able to sustain week in, week out, being able to win. But I think it's also going to be about health. I don't know where our friend Gary is going to be. But do we have any questions? I want to take some questions from any of the listeners here. Feel free to put it in the chat because I definitely want to answer some of your questions while it's just you and me. I know, Aaron, I know that you had some questions. Definitely would love to get your feedback on this. And I think Gary's back. You back, sir?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I can hear you. I'm sorry.
All right.
So you're saying a lot of money
back,
spent.
sir.
Mookie, you said a lot of money spent with the Dodgers. Mookie Betts, et cetera, et cetera. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Freddie Freeman, 2 of 24 in the playoff series. I mean, what are we feeling about these Dodgers and also about our Yankees, man? And just overall, let's talk some baseball.
So I mean, as far as the Dodgers are concerned, you can't put the type of chips in the middle of the table as much as they have going into this season. Like they push every chip imaginable into the middle with the hopes of winning a championship. So for them, there are a few teams like Yankees are always going to be championship or bust because that's the standard and the stereotype that we've set for ourselves. But for the Dodgers, like as a marquee franchise, like their inability to get to that point or just kind of be that team that's there, wins a lot of games during the regular season, but then you get to the postseason and have nothing to show for it. Like that song and dance is getting old. You have 2 championships in the last 35 years. Like, which seems, I mean, it speaks to the parity of Major League Baseball, but you look at teams that have been quote unquote dynasties in the time between that. You look at the Yankees, look at the Red Sox, look at the Giants. Like you have teams that have won, and the Astros. You have teams that have won multiple championships in the time between your titles. Like you have to strike now. You have to strike while you still have this team. You sat there and gave $700 million to Shohei Ohtani just by himself. And yes, you did.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Now, and yes, I will give them credit for working whatever witchcraft they worked to make the numbers happen. And I'll speak about that shortly. But yeah, for them, this is a team that I don't need them to win 100 games or anything like that. They have to win the World Series. They never mind getting there. They have to win it to make this all make sense. As far as the Yankees are concerned, it's kind of the same story, but I think there's a little less pressure on them in the sense of, the spotlight's going to be on the Dodgers this season. Yes, it's always going to be a spotlight on the Yankees because it's the Yankees. They are one of the marquee they are the marquee franchise, if not in all sports, certainly in Major League Baseball. So there's always going to be that added pressure of, getting there. Are you going to continue to waste Aaron Judge's prime? Are you going to continue to let Aaron Boone live off of one home run back in 2003? Like how much are we going to let Brian Cashman continue to live off of championships that Derek Jeter and that group of Hall of Famers won for him, the last one being now 15 years ago? Like,
yeah, I mean,
there's pressure there.
Yeah, with the Dodgers, I think they should have fired their coach after last season. I think they should have fired him after 2022. You won 111 games and you get eliminated like that, but not just once, but twice. And this organization, give them credit for doing everything they can to give Dave Roberts every chance to succeed. There is no reason why this team does not win the playoffs. And I would think that Freddie Freeman's about to be 34. He's getting older, right? There are a little bit of questions as far as Otani's health and his durability to be able to stay upright through the duration of a season. They signed Tyler Glasnow to a 5-year, $135 million contract, who's super injury prone. The top half of their lineup is star-studded, right? But it's the bottom half and that bullpen that is their Achilles heel, right? There are still a couple questions from the 7 through 9 batters that we're just not necessarily sure about. and then starters outside of Yamamoto, outside of Tyler Glasnow. Like, we just don't know, is this pitching staff even the best pitching staff in baseball? Which I don't even think, we just don't know. And Yamamoto is going to need some time to adjust. And is he going to be able to stay healthy? The Yankees, Boone should have gotten fired. Cashman should have gotten fired. I like the Juan Soto trade, but we gave up a lot of depth, and I didn't like how we got rid of Michael King. But what are your feelings, man, on this starting rotation? Because Rendon, we got Stroman, you got Nestor Cortez. I mean, outside of Garrett Cole, man, it's very suspect.
Yeah, no, I feel like, with as far as this pitching staff, second verse same as the first. Like, there's not a lot. If you tell me that you're gonna get a healthy Carlos Rodon, okay, possibly, but you also paid him off of a no hitter and potential. We just talked about that in football. Potential is the most dangerous thing in sports, because when you pay off of that, you don't know. You really don't know. As far as Nestor Cortez, can he stay healthy? Marcus Stroman, listen, respectfully, can he not be an asshole for the whole season? Like,
good Lord.
Which I don't think that's possible. Respect to him. I don't want to have any problems if I ever see him in the streets, but like, his reputation precedes stuff at this point. Like, he's a prickly person to deal with. Is he going to mesh well in that locker room? There's a lot of different.
And the thing is, is that even with Garrett Cole, man, they wasted a great year in Garrett Cole, and even Garrett Cole, man, his fly ball rate is just absolutely ridiculous, and the man gives up about 20 to 25 homers a year, right? So, can we? I mean, he's great, but can we beat the goddamn Astros? That's what it really comes down to. I don't think that this team, Juan Soto is phenomenal. If you have a chance to get a generational type talent like that, you do it. But also at the same time, there's just a lot of question marks, even about Judge and that toe. And I think that there are just some better teams, man. I think the Orioles, shout out to Baltimore, after they got Corbin Burns, man, it's going to be a very interesting year. And I think that people should kind of tame their expectations a little bit.
Without question. I don't think this year is a World Series year for the Yankees, but I think there should be marked improvement from 82 and 80. And that's the thing that's always going to be like the weird asterisk next to Garrett Cole's Cy Young, is the fact that he won it on for a Yankee team that had their worst record in 31 years.
Oh, well, I mean, Blake Snell won the National League Cy Young, which look, the state of pitching in the MLB is trash when you know that Blake Snell wins the NL Cy Young. Okay, like, out of all the pitchers, Zach Wheeler, Corbin Burns last year, all these cats, and you go with Blake Snell. Blake Snell, the reason why he hasn't even been signed yet, because he's kind of overplaying his hand as far as his value. He is a high walk rate type of guy. He's a guy that's going to have at least a 4 ERA, a whip probably above 1.4, and is just a little bit overrated. But anywho, before we kind of pivot here to these Lakers, and we can kind of wrap up here with that and kind of go into your gripes if you want. But how many wins for the Yankees, and do they make the playoffs?
I'm gonna say basement would be 92 wins.
Okay.
I'm gonna say the ceiling would be somewhere like 100, 102. So I'll split it and say I say 95 wins. I think it will be. I think them and Baltimore are going to beat each other up, in the sense of, like, neither team's going to get to 100-win plateau, because they'll be playing each other so much and kind of like beating upon one another to kind of hold each other back from that. But it'll be a two-team race in the AL East. I think Tampa Bay takes a step back. I think Boston kind of is where they're at, and Toronto, the same thing. I think this is going to be a Baltimore and New York, back and forth. I'm going to say right now, just based off of their success last season, Baltimore holds on and wins the AL East, but I think the Yankees do end up with a wild card spot.
Okay, all right, we'll see. Well,
I'll give you the top wild card spot.
Okay, all right, we'll see, man. To me, it's going to come down to pitching. That bullpen, that bullpen kind of scares me a little bit. Let's also kind of talk about a favorite topic. These Lakers, man. These Lakers, they really surprised me by beating OKC last night. They started off pretty bad, and I was like, this might be a blowout, but impressive win nonetheless. But we've been talking all year long. Can this be the start of something? Can it be the start? I'm not buying it. These next 5 games will be telling because they got Minnesota, they got the Kings twice, they got Golden State, and they got another team that's also another playoff contender that I cannot name of in the next 5 games. These 5 games are going to make a difference whether they're going to make a play. I think they're going to make a play in, but to get to the top 6, we're kind of running out of games, and they're going to kind of need to get a little bit of a run. They're going to probably have to go 3-2 in these next 5 games, preferably 5-0. But I don't know. We have a healthy Anthony Davis, and this is what we get. I don't know. Tell me thoughts. LeBron, Lakers, short-term future outlook.
I think 7 seed is the likeliest of scenarios. I think if Sacramento kind of, slumps a little bit, perhaps they can catch that 6 seed. I believe Sacramento's in the 6 spot at this point. Maybe, but I'm not putting any house money on that. I think a 7 seed. I think they move up these wins, these gutty wins that they've been getting, especially against the top seed in the West in Oklahoma City, which is still a weird thing to say. Like they're going to account for something later on down the line. Now, whether that turns into another run like they had last season in the playoffs, I highly doubt it. I think this is a team that's built to perhaps get a first round win, maybe, but I doubt that. Last season they caught Memphis kind of imploding on themselves in the first round, and a largely uneven Golden State team in the second round. So they kind of caught the right path. No different than the Heat in the East. They caught the right path at the right time to get to where they did, but I don't think that path is going to be available to them this season. I think while there's a little bit more parity in the West, I think they're the teams that could stop them from going far are right there, between 1 through 4. If you're not getting past those top 4 teams, you're not getting past. I don't think this season. Maybe Oklahoma City because they're not ready yet. Maybe because they're not ready for prime time. But I look at Minnesota. That's a good solid team there. The Clippers are a solid team, even with the Russell Westbrook injury. Like Denver's the defending champs. You can't discredit them at all. Phoenix is still kind of in the mix too. So I just named those 4 teams. You're not beating those in the playoffs. Maybe OKC, but I doubt it.
Yeah, and I'm looking at these standings. I'm looking at Minnesota right now. They're 7-3 in their last 10 games. Look at Thunder 7-3, Nuggets 7-3. Clippers been kind of struggling. They're 5-5 with the 4 seed. But I look at the Suns right now, man. 5-5 for the last 10 games. Currently sitting at 35-26. They only have a 2-game lead. Right? The Lakers could do it. Like you have a healthy Anthony Davis. You have a healthy LeBron James. Like if Achimura and Austin Reeves can step their game up a little bit more. Right. D'Angelo Russell has been playing phenomenal basketball considering how up and down he's been on the defensive side of the ball last season. I mean, this team has enough talent to beat anybody on any given day. It's just the goddamn Denver Nuggets that they've lost to 8 times in a row. So if they're them, you want it, they could do it, man, because you look at the Suns are just horrifically inconsistent. So outside of the top 3, everyone else is just kind of like, we're just kind of figuring out our seeding, man.
And really, besides Denver, Minnesota and Oklahoma City are what you would call world beaters either.
No,
they are arriving, but they haven't arrived yet. I think and that's what I mean. Like they can catch one of these, like a Lakers team can catch one of these 2 teams that don't have the playoff experience. Especially, I'm looking right now. I'm like, Oklahoma City might be the most vulnerable top seed out there because as much as I love Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, as much as I like Josh Giddey and all, and Jay Holmgren and all them, is April going to get too big for them? 'Cause I can tell you, it's not going to get too big for the Lakers because they've been battle tested. You've got this generation's greatest player on your roster. You've got, when healthy, a double-double machine in Anthony Davis. Austin Reeves is good for 15 to 20 a night. D'Angelo Russell is good for 15 to 20 a night. You have a decent bench. Like this can
Gabe Vincent
you can,
hasn't played.
Gabe Vincent, right?
Prince.
Like get him back. Taurean Prince. They're a solid team. The question is like, can they get all the way right in time to make a decent run? And that I'm like, I don't know if that path is open for them again this season.
What the problem with the Clippers and as well as OKC is that they don't have necessarily the best front court presence. I feel right, like Chet Holmgren is a phenomenal young talent, but he's horrifically undersized from a body composition perspective to go bang up against the likes of a Karl Anthony Towns or or what's the French guy? I can't remember his name.
Rudy
What am I
Gobert.
talking about? Rudy Gobert, right? Like that's a problem for any team, right? When you got those two cats in the front court, and then you got Anthony Edwards, doing his thing. Outside of that, they seem a little bit top heavy. I could see OKC. If I'm OKC, I don't want to play the Lakers in the first round because I tell you what, that 2-7 matchup, I have the Lakers winning that if everyone is fully healthy.
I don't think they want to see any of the teams in the play-in, really. Like, you don't. I'm like, I can see, even though the Warriors aren't what they once were, I can see them catching them off guard.
Oh yeah,
I can see New Orleans catching them off guard. I can see there. I forget who else is in the play-in at this point, but I'm like, if I'm Oklahoma City, you're gonna pray for the worst of those four teams, and I don't know how bad the worst of those four teams actually are compared to them.
Well, let's break that down. Kings, Mavericks, Lakers, Warriors, right? You got the King. God forbid if the Suns end up falling to the 7th seed, and if for some reason, by the grace of God, that Bradley Beal is able to stay upright, and you got a healthy Durant, Booker, and a Bradley Beal, even if he just gives them 18 points, that is a matchup nightmare for OKC, right? Because do they have great players outside of Shane Gilgeous Alexander? No, they don't. They've been very good collectively. But playoffs is about the great players showing up in the great moments.
Listen, if I'm Oklahoma City, legitimately anybody 6 through 10 right now could beat them in the first round if they end up in the playoffs playing scenario. And I believe 6 through 10 is separated by what? 4 or 5 games, maybe?
Yeah,
3 games.
Yeah.
I know, like 1 through 8 separated by less than 7. So this kind of reminds me of 2008 when they, obviously a little bit lesser than where 8 teams won 50 games. The Warriors won 48 games and still missed the playoffs and all that. It feels like this is gonna be one of those type of years.
Yep, and shout out to my brother-in-law here, the real estate bodyguard.
That's a factual statement, though.
Yeah, Bradley Beal. I mean, don't even get me started on the Suns. Let's finish up with these Suns here and go to your gripes. I was going to talk Caitlin Clark, but she's not worthy of acknowledgement outside of her name being Caitlin Clark. Am I a hater? Sure. Whatever. I'm a hater. I'll own it. Go ahead, Gary. Just say how you feel.
I don't give a rat's ass about college sports, so that's kind of where I'm like, all right. So, I'm not blind to the hype. I'm not blind to both sides of the coin on this, but it's just all right, she's going to do all this, but if you're the WNBA, the infrastructure needs to continue to improve and grow because her star value is going to bring a lot of eyes and a lot more revenue to that league. She might be the first $1 million WNBA player. I'm just going to throw that out there.
I think she already is. She already is.
No, I mean when she whatever the highest paid player in WNBA history is going to be Caitlin Clark's going to surpass that.
Well, that's probably going to have to be that's probably going to have to be in total because they increased the maximum to make $250,000, which still for 3 to 4 months worth of work, I still think is pretty phenomenal. But I mean, I digress. I'm so tired of Caitlin Clark. My only gripe with her is the fans. That's it. She's not the GOAT. She's not. That to me goes to Breanna Stewart of UConn, won 4 straight national championships, a 3-time Player of the Year, 3-time AAC Player of the Year. That's all we're gonna say on
Didn't
that.
she
But
like?
let's just
Didn't she
finish.
like lose? Didn't she like lose twice in her 4 years there or something like that?
Yes. She
So
lost no more than 5 games. She won 4 straight national titles, okay, and was the
okay,
best player with All Americans and won 4 straight national titles. I'm sorry. You can't put Caitlin Clark ahead of someone that's been the best player on 4 straight national title teams and a 95-game win percentage and a 3-time national player of the year. Like, and for the ones that want to say that it's racial, it's not. Breanna Stewart's white. So don't say that, oh, it's because she's white. It has nothing to do with that. I think another white player is the best player in college basketball. So just stop with all the malarkey. But these Suns, man, what's your temperature check on these Suns? I'm just not buying it. I'm not feeling it. Seen them live a couple times here in Phoenix. I'm not feeling it, and yeah, I'm not feeling it. What say you, Gary?
it seems like with Phoenix, it's just more and more of the same. Like they load up with a solid roster of talent, and then they get to, you know, late April, May, and there's very little to show for it. It's unfortunate because this seems like the continued story of Kevin Durant post Golden State. He's kind of become this weird, highly paid journeyman, if that makes sense. You know, you go from Golden
Yeah,
State to Brooklyn and Brooklyn to Phoenix, and it's like you they're good, but they're not going to be. That's not a championship material team. I think
they.
uh,
No, I was just saying they didn't need to make the trade. They didn't need. I remember I was Planet Fitness when I heard about that trade, and I was like, "This is the end of the Suns being viable for the next 10 years." Because they gave up a lot of draft capital. They gave up a lot of assets for these last 2 years, trading for Durant, trading for Beal, when they literally had a team that won 65 games in 2022 with a decent complementary pieces of players. You win 65 games, yes, you lost in the second round to the Mavericks, but you don't need to tear the whole thing down. Maybe you need to change a couple players or two, just like the Celtics. They didn't change the whole entire roster. They kept the core critical pieces and then they
and added.
built around that, right? And so the Suns did the complete opposite. Let's add a guy, Bradley Beal, who hasn't played more than 65 games in 7 years, and we're paying him 50 to 55 million this year, 65 the next year. He has a no trade clause, and we're on the hook for another $200 million. Tell me how that's smart from a business sense in basketball.
It isn't, but they again this is all this like win now culture making these poor business decisions. Like I we are we I'm about to get philosophical for a second. We as a society like instant gratification. I don't think that's a groundbreaking discovery, but that's kind of what we do. We look for that instant gratification. We look for that immediate joy. And these owners, these managers, these GMs, they are running their franchises exactly like that. They want that instant gratification. There's they're following the Rams model of F them picks and all that and just going for the gusto. You saw the Rams go for the gusto. They won a championship, and look at them now. Like they
Yeah,
were good.
that's
They yes, they made the playoffs this season, but it's like they were still less than. You
yeah.
know,
I think there's a way to where you can balance that between winning now, but also preparing for the future. And I think the Golden State Warriors had a phenomenal opportunity with all those young guys, with Weissman and with Jordan Poole. They had an opportunity. They had a 2 year window to prepare for the future. They could have still, if they had done this right, still could have won another 2 or 3 championships with Klay Thompson coming off the bench, Steph Curry being as great that he is. Draymond's going to do what Draymond does. You got Wiggins, even though he doesn't love basketball anymore, it seems. I hope his situation's okay. I think they completely fumbled a really golden opportunity to sustain their dynasty.
without question, you laid it out there. this is a team that, for all of its success, for the 4 championships in 8 years, there will be, like, they may be one of the great, they're going to be the most successful what if in NBA history, the most, like, which is an oxymoron in and of itself, but, it's going to be, they won. I thought that the greatest what if to that point of successful teams was like the Bulls dynasty in the 90s. If Michael hadn't left for 94 and 95, would they have won 8 titles in a row? The question is going to be, had Kevin Durant not left, how many more championships they would have won as a franchise? Like, and like you said, they had the opportunity to rebuild with the younger talent. They panicked and they went all in to win a championship against Boston. And now you look at them, and I'm like, there's a really high chance they're not even going to make the playoffs altogether. Like, they'll make the plans, but I don't think they'll be in the final 8 seeds.
Yeah, no. But Garrett, let's finish up. What regret do you have today, sir, before we conclude tonight's episode?
Well, again, outside of having the whole Dallas Cowboys thing to end our opening video, which we need to work on, I mean, let's go back to Caitlin Clark. Let's talk about this in the sense of, like, everybody's looking for an angle with her. Everybody's looking for. They don't want to call her the Great White Hype, even though she is the Great White Hype and the Great White Hope, almost in a sense, because I don't know. It's like they haven't seen a successful white female basketball player before when there's been plenty of them. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I mean,
but I get it. I get it from I get. So I'm gonna play both sides of the coin here, because this is not much of a gripe, but this is me kind of looking at everything. Because again, while I don't care about college sports as a whole, she's become pop culture, which is something that I am big on. And in that sense, like, she's doing the commercial, she's going to be the next star, because apparently the WNBA needs a new big star. But in my head, and here's where the gripe starts, you've got plenty of stars in the WNBA. You got plenty of great talent currently playing in the WNBA. You have 2 franchises in the Las Vegas Aces and New York Liberty sitting there playing arms race all season long to end up playing in the WNBA Finals. Who's going to have the more stacked roster? I love seeing that. I want more of that. Give me more of that. If you can say that this girl, Caitlin Clark, this young woman, is going to then go to one of these 2 teams, there's going to be a bidding war between them or something like that, give me that. But if you're going to put her on the Indiana, hey, happy birthday!
Happy birthday! She hopped on.
Listen, I had to, before the night ended, I'm like, I got to hang with the guys and get a little sports talk into my veins. I can't start, 5-1 without some sports talk,
To hell with my gripes, Tigney, take it. Go on.
Yeah, take it away.
No, I'm dead serious. I'm good. Go for it.
Yeah, take it away.
You know what? I know I missed the majority of this conversation, and I know y'all put a great show on as usual. And I just want to say thank you for the amazing outpouring of support, and the support from this show, from you gentlemen, and Ben, who's with us, and you'll be watching this back, and everybody that has supported DTS and beyond. And this will be going soon to the networks, because I believe so much in the show and what we can do and the talents that we can bring. But the one thing that I want to bring on Tigney Talks is this. Yes, today is my birthday. I'm celebrating as such, and I'm doing the things that I love and the places that I love. But what I want to really hone in on and just tell everybody is to go and live in those moments and make those memories count. We have in sports, and I know probably, gentlemen, you talked about it again. I'm going to watch the playback. We saw one of the greatest football players, one of the greatest centers retire, a day or 2 ago, and that was Jason Kelce, who I believe in 2029 will be first ballot Hall of Famer. 13 seasons with one team, has won a Super Bowl, 7-time All-Pro, 7-time Pro Bowl, All-Pro. and you know, he has had a phenomenal career. And then in the journalism front, we lost one of the best to ever do it, and that's Chris Mortensen at the age of 72. You know, being with ESPN as a insider for over 30 years. And, you know, the Mort Report is what I always look forward to when he had breaking news on any football player or, you know, any trade that was going on and anything else there. But the thing that I took away from all of that was the amount of love and support that he got from so many people that worked with him, that knew him, that was a colleague, that worked at different networks. This man literally not only, you know, reached through the televisions to you, Jeff, and you, Gary, and you, Ben, and so many of us that love the NFL, but also to those that worked with him in journalism and media and broadcasting. He, you know, leaving a legacy to everyone that he has mentored and he has worked with. And, you know, just overall, what I want to say is, you know, those trips that you plan on taking, those, you know, places that you want to go, those dreams you want to accomplish, you want to start a podcast, you want to go out there, you want to do something, do it now. Make those memories now. Be with your family now. Do those things now. And, you know, just reach out to a friend that you haven't talked to in a while. Have a coffee, have a conversation, have a laugh, you know, go do something together to create memories. Memories to me are more valuable than money spent. You know, because we have things, you know, that will, you know, that clothes that make us look good and, you know, the bling and all it, but the value of time and the value of creating memories will be so much more. And at the end of the day, when it is, you know, your last time, when it's our last days on the earth, it's going to all about be legacy and what you leave on this earth and leave on this planet. That's what I got from those that said all those kind words about Jason Kelce. He's still here, but, you know, leaving the NFL, and about Chris Mortensen, who is not here, but his spirit and his legacy lives on through so many people that he has mentored and worked with side by side. So may his memory be a blessing, and thoughts and prayers to his wife and to his son.
Hey, you know, very well said. Go ahead.
This is why. Thank you, Marissa, for getting on here, because we went a whole hour and did not mention Jason Kelce or Chris Mortensen. So God bless you for coming on here, because we would have gone. We were getting ready to end the episode, and we would not have gone without talking about that. And I do want to say, like, I mean, it's Adam Schefter and Chris Mortensen. That's where I got my NFL insider stuff from. And the fact that he's no longer with us sucks. God bless him. God bless his family. Jason Kelce, you terrorized my defense for years. So congratulations, but I can't say that I'm going to miss you too much.
I mean, at least that's honest. I know that you're very big on certain causes. I noticed that you post that on Facebook. Is there like a cause that our listeners could support that you're very passionate about? I mean, we're all about, you know, talking sports, but we're also about, you know, giving back. And is there any one that really like stands out to you?
Thank you so much for asking. And to go off of Gary's thing before I go into it, Chris Mortensen, there would be no Ian Rappaport, no David Jeremiah, no his name is no Jay Glazier, obviously no Adam Scheffler. That's how much of an impact Chris Mortensen has made into journalism. Tom Pelissero, there's so many of them. They will, you know, if they were here in studio with us, they definitely would say the same thing, that Chris Mortensen had an impact in their life. I am proud to be part of a nonprofit here in Plano, Texas, named Minnie's Food Pantry, that has been in existence for almost 16 years. It is a nonprofit 501c3 that is all about drop kicking, punching hunger in the face, one box, one bag, one family, one person at a time. We believe in the power of making sure that nobody goes hungry. The beautiful thing about Minnie's Food Pantry, it is community supported, so that we have clients that not only come from the state of Texas, but we have clients that will travel several hours out of states because they do not have some place where they get fresh food, fresh vegetables, you know, what you see in a grocery store, product that is perfectly placed on shelves, and cans that are not dented and not wilted and spoiled vegetables and fruits. They will get the opposite of those things at Minnie's Food Pantry. They will get the best of the best as if they were going to spend their hard-earned money. And the beautiful thing is they do not need to go and spend their money because it is provided for every family. We take care of our current homeless our community, our senior community, those that are in schools. We have school programs that provide snacks for several school districts here, as well as taking care of the students' families with meals provided. So Minnie's Food Pantry, which is founded by the incredible Dr. Cheryl Action Jackson, named after her mother, Minnie Hawthorne Ewing, who is a legacy in the spirit that we had lost suddenly in 2015. Her name is radiant and resonates within the community and beyond. And so I'm very passionate of what I do. And those that have followed me on Instagram and on Facebook and on X, I talk about Minnie's Food Pantry any chance that I can, because I believe that no person should go hungry and no person should have to pinch pennies together to try to get food on the table for their family. So for my birthday, I asked people to support. My age is 51, even though I look 21. Hello. To put a 5 or a 1 in their donation, or to go to minniesfoodpantry.org and provide money there, because $1 provides 3 meals to, and, you know, and we definitely want to continue to fight against hunger and support those that need food for their families. So I thank everybody that has given. So far, we are near the halfway point of my goal of 1510. And so it's not too late to support, or if you don't follow me on Instagram or X or on Facebook, just go to minniesfoodpantry.org and support today.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. I will do my part in support. Love giving back. Always very, very, very important. Tigney, that's a perfect way to wrap up the episode. I don't think there's any other way we could do it. Glad that you're able to join, Tigney. I promise you that crown is coming. I'm going to call UPS.
You got to enhance it now. You have to enhance it now. I want the full bling. I want all of that. I want DTS in the center. So, you know, I want to make sure that it arrives right before the 68 tournament.
Yeah.
So
blame Biden on that one. Blame Biden. Anywho. Folks, that is all. Again, Tigney, we got much love for you. We're glad that you're able to come on. Looking forward to having you back on for a full episode next week, and ready to get back to it. We got a lot. We got March Madness coming up. We got NBA playoffs. We got MLB.
The Masters coming up. This is MLB coming up. Let's go.
Right. The draft. I mean, we got so many things to talk about, and I'm glad to be sharing it with you guys. So to all of our listeners, we appreciate it. We'll be back next Tuesday, same time, same place, on episode 123 of Death, Taxes, and Sports. But we thank you for joining episode 122 of Death, Taxes, Sports. Guys, take care. Be blessed.